Hello guys, welcome back to VC Tech. Previously we talked about EIGRP for IPv4, how it works, how it forms neighbors, and also how it calculates the best path using its powerful dual algorithm. But today we are taking it a step further because in real-world networks, IPv4 alone is no longer enough. Today we are diving into EIGRP for IPv6. And you might be wondering, is it completely different or is it just a small adjustment? Well, it is similar in concept but very different in configuration. So, in this video, I'm going to show you what makes it different from IPv4 and also the full configuration of EIGRP for IPv6. So, for this tutorial, we are going to be making use of 3 routers and 2 switches with a few host devices for this configuration. Remember, when we configure EIGRP for IPv4, what we do is we advertise all the networks that are directly connected to the router. However, for IPv6, it's slightly different because I'm going to show you how EIGRP is configured on a router for IPv6 to enable host devices in different local area network to communicate. For this tutorial, I've already assigned IPv6 address to the interfaces on the router. As on this router, we have 2 networks, 2010:A101:BBB:1/64. We also have 2001:BBD:1/64, as well as we have on this router also, and we also have on this router. So the first step when configuring EIGRP or when making use of IPv6 is to always remember to enable IPv6 unicast routing. This is the first step. Anytime you want to configure IPv6, always enable IPv6 unicast routing to enable the router know that it is going to be making use of IPv6. We've not configured a routing protocol in any of the routers. Let's try to get IPv6 address since we've already configured link local configuration. We have our link local configuration here and also have our global unicast address over here. So let's get IPv6 address for the host devices and try to ping. So we are able to get our IPv6 address for this device. Let's also get the IPv6 address so we can try to ping from other host device in a different local area network. So this is the IPv6 address. We're just going to copy this and let's head over to this local area network and get IPv6 address for this device. It was successful. Now let's try to ping. Remember, we've not configured a routing protocol. Let's just see if it's able for us to communicate with other local area network devices. So as you can see, the destination host is unreachable because we've not configured a routing protocol. Now let's get into the main purpose for this tutorial, which is to configure EIGRP for IPv6 to enable host devices in the local area network to communicate. So as you can see, the devices on this tutorial cannot communicate because no routing protocol. Let's start the configuration for EIGRP to enable host devices communicate. So, what is the first step of configuring EIGRP on a router? What we do is we say IPv6 router. We want to tell the router that we are going to be making use of EIGRP routing protocol, and we also want to specify the process ID. For this tutorial, we want to be making use of 45 as a process ID, and always remember to assign a router ID when configuring EIGRP for IPv6. So we say EIGRP and we say router ID. We want to give this router 1.1.1.1 and we say no short. By doing this, guys, we've configured EIGRP on a router. The router now knows that it is going to be using EIGRP to route out traffic on the local area network. Next, let's do the same configuration for this router over here to let the router know that we are going to be making use of EIGRP for IPv6. Remember to always enable global unicast routing when you're making use of IPv6. So we say IPv6 router EIGRP, and we want to specify the process ID of 45, and always remember that the router ID when configuring EIGRP is always different. So EIGRP, and we want to specify the router ID. For the previous router we used 1.1.1. For this we are going to be making use of 1.1.1.2, and we want to say no short. We've also configured IPv6 EIGRP on this router, as well as we've configured on this router. Now let's head over to the last router and configure EIGRP on that router to enable host devices communicate with other devices in a different local area network. So IPv6 unicast routing should always be the first thing to do when making use of IPv6. So next is IPv6 router EIGRP with the process ID of 45, and EIGRP router ID is 1.1.1.3, and we say no short. So we've configured EIGRP on all the routers. However, there is something else that we've not configured. When configuring IPv4, EIGRP for IPv4, we always advertise all the networks that are directly connected to that router. However, in this case, it's different, because if we try to ping, regardless of the configuration that we just did on the router, if we try to ping the local area network device, we are still going to get destination host unreachable, because there is something else that we've not done, which is specifying on the interfaces that we are going to be making use of IPv6. For IPv4, we advertise all the networks connected to that router. For IPv6, we advertise that we are going to be making use of the interfaces on the router. That is how we advertise our routing protocol, our EIGRP routing protocol. We advertise our EIGRP routing configuration on the interfaces on the router when configuring IPv6. So what are we going to do next? We are going to say interface gig 0/0. Then we say IPv6 EIGRP. We specify the process ID of 45. Then we exit and we say interface gig 0/1. And we also do the same configuration. I'm just going to copy this. I'm going to copy this and just paste it. Now for this router over here, we've configured EIGRP on the router and also on the interfaces. So whenever the host devices wants to communicate with other host device in a different local area network, they know how to access that device. Next, let's head over to the second router and also do the same configuration on the interfaces as we did on the first router. So interface gig 0/0, we want to paste that over here. And interface gig 0/1, we also want to paste that. As you can see, it is now telling us that we've formed neighbor with the first router, which is this router over here. Let's also head over to the last router and do the same configuration and try to ping one more time as we did previously, and it was unable to go through. Let's do it one more time and see what result we are going to get. As you can also see, it has formed new neighbor with the second router, which is this router over here. Now let's try to ping those host devices that we tried to ping previously and we were unable to connect with them as we were getting destination host unreachable. So on this device, let's ping this local area network. So this device, let's just copy this and try to ping from this device over here. We want to paste that and ping. Previously, when we tried to ping the other device in a different local area network, we were getting destination host unreachable. However, now since we've configured EIGRP and also advertised the EIGRP on the interfaces on the router, we are not able to ping this local area network from this local area network. Previously, we were pinging with this device, and as you can see, we were getting destination host unreachable. Let's try that one more time. Now you can see that our routing protocol, the EIGRP routing protocol that we configured for IPv6 is now functioning because we are able to gain communication with this device over here. Let's also try to ping from this local area network to this local area network. Let's get the IPv6 address for this device. It was successful. Let's get the IPv6 address. So IP config, and this is the IPv6 address. Let's just copy this and head over to this device and try to test our communication. Let's assign IPv6 address to this device, and let's try to ping. So ping this IPv6 address. Guys, this is how we configure a routing protocol, or this is how we configure EIGRP routing protocol for IPv6, as our host devices are not able to communicate with the different local area devices because we've configured the routing protocol to enable those devices or that network to communicate with another network. So this is how we configure EIGRP for IPv6, enabling host devices in a different local area network to communicate with another host devices in a different local area network. Now we can also troubleshoot by saying do show IPv6 interface brief. As you can also see, it is showing us that on interface gig 0/0, that is where we have our link local address and also our global unicast address, and they are both up. Interface gig 0/1, we also have our global unicast address and it is also up. So guys, this is how we configure EIGRP for IPv6 to enable host devices in a different local area network to communicate. And also, we can troubleshoot by saying do show IPv6 interface brief to see the link local address and also the global unicast address. If this video helped you understand how to configure EIGRP for IPv6, how to apply it on the interfaces on the router, then why not subscribe to this channel and smash the like button, because on the next video we are going to be talking about OSPF for IPv6. I'm glad you are able to understand how EIGRP works for IPv6 and also how to configure it. I hope to see you in the next video where I will be talking about OSPF. Thank you guys, and see you in the next video.